Yo, I just want to thank y'all for tuning in and watching my prior videos. And thanks for the support. You know the routine, though. Let's keep it going. Give me a like, comment, share. Don't forget to follow. And, comment. Tell us how you really feel. Because the only way to express ourselves is to express that First Amendment, which is free speech. Now it's time for your mids. Let's go.
Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge, the coming administration, in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak.
Yeah, that was Dr. Fauci in 2017. If you haven't seen that video, you must have been living under a rock. But that dude, he could have been like the modern day Paul Revere, as psychic as he was, hitting every media station from 2017 until, a pandemic is coming, a pandemic is coming. But then all of a sudden, he becomes a superstar, right?
So the numbers that you've been hearing, the 180,000 plus deaths, are real deaths from COVID-19.
We know where we at now. This is August 2021. So let's just forget all the gray area, and I'm gonna take you, and we're gonna get an idea of what this virus is and where it came from. This is from Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative in the House, who actually went out around July 21st and told her story about how she was informed from a Chinese defector of what this virus really is, and that it was created in the lab, but it just wasn't created in the lab and leaked. It was a bioweapon.
COVID-19 isn't the only bioweapon, everyone. It is not. It's just the first one. And Dr. Yan, I spoke with her the other night. Many of us were debriefed, and she told us the information that she has. There are many bioweapons being worked on. Let me tell you how scary this is.
You mean an entire, like she said, entire bioweapons program. Moscow and these guys all said entire bioweapons program by the Chinese Communist Party. And they've signed all the treaties. So on the surface, they're saying, hey, we're working with you. That's a lie, correct?
So they're making these bioweapons. Here's what scares me. You want to know why they're so interested in your DNA, why they want genetics. They want to target these bioweapons by race. If they can target bioweapons by race, that means they can create these viruses that can say take out white Americans or Black Americans or Asians. So let's say they want to just attack America and they say we're taking out white people. That will hurt white people all over the world, right? Eventually, but it won't hurt them as Chinese, Asians.
Now that we've established that, let's go back, okay? Let's fast forward backwards to November of 2019. Remember the virus, we didn't really hear about the virus in China and start getting a lot of attention until around December of 2019. So let me take you back to November 2019, which many of you never even heard of, called Event 201, which was hosted by Bill Gates.
Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
The outcome of the CAPS pandemic in Event 201 was catastrophic. 65 million people died in the first 18 months. The outbreak was small at first and initially seemed controllable, but then it started spreading in densely crowded and impoverished neighborhoods of megacities. From that point on, the spread of the disease was explosive. Within 6 months, cases were occurring in nearly every country. The global economy was in a free fall. The GDP down 11%. Stock markets around the world plummeted between 20 and 40% and headed into a downward cycle of fear and low expectation. Businesses were not borrowing, banks were not lending. Everyone was just hoping to hunker down and weather the storm. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years, perhaps a decade. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer.
And they basically simulated a coronavirus pandemic and everything that they would have to do to maintain it. Everything. Even your free speech. So there we go. We go from November, December, they start talking about it. March 3rd, that was the emergence. The first time you ever really saw Dr. Fauci on television, and he ain't never left the screen yet.
We always turn to this team to do that. And it's really something that we feel that we're proud of, but I think the nation should know that these are the kind of things that we have available for them. John, you want to?
I would just like to also welcome you, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary,
Thank you, Jim.
to our Vaccine Research Center. We look forward to a brief tour for you upstairs where you can have Dr. Corbett and Dr. Graham tell you about how we're working on the coronavirus vaccine.
So, see how he rose like the phoenix from the ashes to come save us? Well, that was on March 3rd. Let's fast forward 10 days later when Trump declares a state of emergency.
Special report. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Washington. We're coming on the air as President Trump holds a news conference about the coronavirus in the White House Rose Garden, and he is expected to declare a national emergency. Let's listen in now to the President of the United States as cases here have now topped 1,800 and many events canceled. Let's listen to the President.
Everybody being here today, I'd like to provide an update to the American people on several decisive new actions we're taking in our very vigilant effort to combat and ultimately defeat the coronavirus.
And everybody went straight for the toilet paper.
Do you have any teepee? Teepee for my bunghole?
I wonder if the people who own the big toilet paper corporations, I wonder if they was at Event 201 and was like, how can we get paid? Don't forget, this was in the midst of an election season, the most important election of our lives. It may be. I'm not going to say it. Anyway, the headlines were just dominated by turmoil and shit. Then Dr. Lord Fauci, a.k.a. Three Mask, started to tell you what you can and can't do. And it was only supposed to be 2 weeks. It's been over 500 days, and still to this day, he's telling you how to live. You know? But right around that time, when that lockdown, 2 weeks turned into a month. Then people was at home watching things on the internet. And the emergence of new information about everything. From medication on down to who these people are that are telling you what you can and can't do. Well, there was a doctor. I'm just going to say her first name because I can't say her whole name. Might get taken down. But Dr. Judy held an documentary called /Plandemic, where she exposes Dr. Lord Fauci on all his criminal actions. And she said, and she dealt with him during the AIDS virus pandemic. And she said that if we do not stop this now, well, anyway, I'll just let her say what she thinks about this pandemic.
Their attempt to silence you has failed. And I have to ask, how do you sit here with confidence to call out these great forces and not fear for your life as you leave this building?
Because if we don't stop this now, we can not only forget our republic and our freedom, but we can forget humanity because we'll be killed by this agenda.
Do you remember Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better? Of course you do. Well, right around that time, he used it. But not only did he use it, they started to use it around the globe, different leaders, different elected officials, unelected officials. Well, speak and build back better.
'2020 remains a crucial year Il Covid-19 sta avendo un impatto devastante sulle nostre vite.
We cannot let this crisis become a lost opportunity.
Humanity also faces the threat of climate catastrophe.
The risk of forest fires is rapidly increasing.
Any dip in global emissions this year will be either immediate or long-lasting.
Our environmental agenda must not waver.
We must stay focused.
The recovery plans must be sustainable, climate neutral, and climate resilient.
We must recover better.
After Build Back Better, we started to hear about the Great Reset.
We have an incredible opportunity to create entirely new sustainable industries, investing in nature as the true engine of our economy.
The current global crisis has disrupted every aspect of our lives, but it has also presented us with an extraordinary opportunity, a chance to reset and accelerate efforts to improve the state of our world.
What is the Great Reset? When I heard the Great Reset, it kind of reminded me a little bit of this slogan from George Bush.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
So let's fast forward a little bit to after the election. Biden got in, right? He won the most votes of any elected official of all time.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
And do you remember when they first started pushing the vaccine during the election? How he said he ain't getting the jab.
Would you get it? Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
If and when the vaccine comes. And it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done. When we finally do, God willing, get a vaccine, who's going to take the shot? Who's going to take the shot? You can be the first one to say, sign me up. They now say it's okay. And the question of whether it's real when it's there, that requires enormous transparency. You got to make all of it available to other experts across the nation so they can look and see. So there's consensus, this is a safe vaccine. If the president announced tomorrow we have a vaccine, would you take it? Only if it was completely transparent, that other experts in the country could look at it. Only if we knew all of what went into it. If Donald Trump can't give answers and the administration can't give answers to these three questions, the American people should not have confidence.
But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Then, as soon as he won, he got the jab. Then he forgot the jab. That he forgot he got the jab. Then he forgot that he was even president. But hey, not there. Well, January 6th happened, right? The whole insurrection thing. That in itself, which has a lot of controversy inside of it, that's a whole story on its own. But right after that happened, they started to talk about the biggest threat to society. It's not the Taliban. It's not Russia. It's not China. It's white supremacy. Words from Joe Biden, who himself is a KKK member. Well, he doesn't claim it, but he spent a lot of time with them. One of his best friends was the Grand Dragon. And you should hear a lot of the things that he said throughout the years in that Capitol building.
The consensus is A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. There's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized.
But that's for another story. I'm not trying to stray too far away here. All right? But do you understand what the diversion tactic is? And when he does that, because everybody knows his history. So people really know that he's lying. And if you don't know that he's lying, you're not paying attention. You're living under a rock. Once again. And so the way I look at it is it's like a spin tactic. All right? Everything is stealth today. It's almost as if he's using that as a way to keep minorities enslaved if they believe him, because he'll get them to do all his dirty work. But when he's talking about, white supremacy, he wasn't talking about white supremacy. He was talking about patriots, aka Christians. That's who he was talking to. And I'm going to get back to that later, and you're going to find out the spin of why he's using this tactic right now. So this is where it gets mushy now, right? Let's talk about Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. And now he is a philanthropist out to heal the world.
Bill Gates declared vaccines the best investment I've ever made.
There's been over a 20-to-1 return, over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
Gates gave hours of videotaped testimony.
What were the non-Microsoft browsers that you were concerned about in January of 1996?
That month.
Yes, sir.
And what about it?
What non-Microsoft browsers were you concerned about in January of 1996?
I don't know what you mean concerned.
What is it about the word concerned that you don't understand?
I'm not sure what you mean by it.
The Justice Department has charged Microsoft with engaging in anti-competitive and exclusionary practices designed to maintain its monopoly in personal computer operating systems.
In a move to overshadow the negative press, Gates invested $100 million to set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Overnight, Bill Gates transformed his public image from ruthless tech monopolizer to the world's most generous philanthropist.
I don't think he ever really got over that pie thing. But I want you to listen to some of the things he had to say over the years about all the wonderful work that he's doing to heal the world.
One issue that really grabbed me as urgent were issues related to population. We see a lot of things that are going very well, things like reducing childhood death and First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Here we can see a chart that looks at the total world population over the last several hundred years. And at first glance, this is a bit scary. We go from less than 1 billion in 1800, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today is happening even faster. So Melinda and I wondered whether providing new medicines and keeping children alive, would that create more of a population problem?
But did you come to reproductive issues as an intellectual?
When I was growing up, my parents were always involved in various volunteer things. My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial to be involved with that.
My dad was head of Planned Parenthood.
We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Yeah, he's into population control. But I think the only thing he knows about mathematics is how to subtract. Did you ever hear about his wife actually recently leaving him and they're getting a divorce? Can you imagine what that's about? They say, the media tries to tell you it's over the Epstein thing. Like, he was kicking it with Epstein, he was flying on the plane. I'm leaving you. No, baby, I promise you I wasn't screwing teenagers with him. I promise you I wasn't doing that. Don't get mad at me. And look, is it because Cuties was in my Netflix queue? Never trust a guy with a sweater like that, bro.
Hello, useless eaters. As your unqualified, non-elected global human health overlord, I'd like to take this opportunity to flaunt my position of power and influence over society and share some of my plans for you and your future. When I amassed my fortune in computer software, I demonstrated that I was willing to lie, steal code, cheat my partners, and exercise monopolistic control to destroy my competitors. Now that I've retired, I can rebrand myself as a humanitarian. With my for-profit foundation masquerading as a charity, I can advocate for population reduction and sponsor mass human experiments with unproven vaccines in vulnerable populations. Like my father, a powerful banker, eugenicist, and Rockefeller crony himself, it's always been my ambition to decide who lives and, more importantly, how many have to die. Whether it's under the guise of climate change or world health, it's really all about controlling and culling the human herd for fun and profit. In November of last year, I hosted Event 201, a war game simulation of a global pandemic. Leaders from private corporations, global banks, governments, and the media got together to strategize ways they could align in lockstep when responding to a worldwide health crisis. Using a coordinated campaign of fear-mongering, intimidation, social shaming, and economic blackmail, we realized that we could get around dangerous philosophies like individual liberty and national sovereignty. With an obedient population, we would be free to implement our own top-down solutions, like forced quarantines, social distancing, contact tracing, and mandatory testing, as a means to seize technocratic control of society. Now imagine my excitement when we had the opportunity to declare our own global pandemic. It was my chance to look like the Nostradamus of public health and to position myself and business partners like Dr. Fauci as the de facto authorities on response and solutions. Through exaggerated doomsday scenarios and computer simulations, our petty control freaks instituted harsh rules and draconian lockdowns. Even after our dire predictions proved false, scared and well-meaning people continued to submit to the arbitrary and foolish demands of their so-called leaders. Having achieved global lockdown and medical martial law, we will continue to hold hostage your ability to congregate, work, travel, or do just about anything until we're prepared to roll out our bigger plan. I'd like to call this Pandemic 1, because believe me, we have others in the works. Our final solution is to have you begging for us to vaccinate, tag, and digitally track each one of you like livestock. Not only will my foundation enjoy legal immunity and trillions in profits, But these mandatory experimental vaccines will move us so much further down the road to absolute centralized global control. If only my good friend Jeffrey Epstein had been here to celebrate with me aboard the Lolita Express. So remember, global citizens, this will end when I say it ends. Could be a year, maybe 2 years, maybe never. I guarantee that if we have our way, it will be at least until you're not able to do anything to stop it. Just surrender your personal freedom and common sense to our fear merchants in government and the media, because none of this works unless you all go along with it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to do some augmented reality spirit cooking with Marina Abramovich. Bye now.
Look in the mirror for as long as necessary that your face disappear.
Well, then this pandemic thing started. And who did the media turn to besides Dr. Fauci for all the information of what comes next? Billy, pretty sweater Gates, right? We must listen to our new unelected officials, Bill Gates and Dr. Lord Fauci. You ever heard what the talking heads were saying as of recently?
This is being called a pandemic among the unvaccinated.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
A pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is an epidemic that's occurring in the unvaccinated.
We're seeing a pandemic among the unvaccinated.
So this is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
We have a pandemic among the non-vaccinated. We have a pandemic because of the unvaccinated.
We could have had this under control. We were well on our way. And the only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
We've got to shun folks. We've got to shun people into getting vaccinated.
We need to shun those that refuse to get vaccinated.
The unvaccinated people have put us in the position that we're in now, and it is not a good place.
The only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated, and they're killing people.
Just 36% of the people in this county are vaccinated. Every seat is full. No social distancing or masks.
It's stupid. Dangerous and stupid.
You got to start telling people if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this office or this place of business. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come to work. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this gym. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this, get onto this airplane.
If you don't choose to get vaccinated, you may not come to work. You may not have access to a situation where you're going to put my grandchildren in jeopardy, where you might kill them.
We're going to do a major vaccination drive for kids 12 years old and up.
Grandparents, call your grandkids, tell them they are vaccinated.
Put them on a bus and bring them to a mass vaccination site.
It has nothing to do with freedom. It has nothing to do with liberty. You don't have the freedom and the liberty to put other people in jeopardy.
You really need to get vaccinated.
I'm not asking what's in the infusion. I'm not looking up all of the ingredients in the infusion. I am sticking out my arm and I am taking the infusion.
They get at the pharmacies. This is what they get to see and read, and what we get to see and read in the physician desk reference. Ladies, this one is which one? Potentially. So this one is, that's Janssen Moderna. This is Pfizer, right? This is Pfizer. Okay. Is that open? Take that. Okay. You have that? Okay. Stand this direction. I want you to look at the camera. I want you to open up both of those package inserts and see what information we have as physicians to tell us what the benefits and the risks of these vaccines are. The benefits and the risks that we're supposed to draw conclusions from to provide you informed consent are that.
I'm not asking what's in the infusion. I'm not looking up all of the ingredients in the infusion. I am sticking out my arm and I am taking the infusion.
Now, to Christians, doesn't that sound a little all too familiar? And if you don't get it, maybe you are living under a rock. The book of Revelation reveals that you will not be able to eat, trade, do business, anything without receiving his mark, 666. But wait, this is just a shot, right? This is just a shot. That's not numbers. There's no 666 included in this. Let me show you something.
I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated. The idea that the Democrats or the Biden is hiding people and sucking the blood of children and no, I'm serious. I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated.
And you know what's funny? It just so happens that Congress made the woke bill. Do you remember the video that I put together for you guys? What is HR 666? The woke bill, which basically uses racial and social issues to basically open up your playbook and be able to dig into every facet of your life to protect citizens from white supremacy, aka Christians. Now, here we go. Do you remember the Great Reset, right? Klaus Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset, COVID-19. Well, this is what COVID-19 actually stands for. Give me a second. Throw this up. So, COVID-19 really stands for Certificate of Vaccine ID AI, because the first letter in the alphabet is A, and the ninth letter in the alphabet is I. The truth hidden in plain sight. The truth hidden in plain sight. That is basically the way that societies, secret societies, move. Stealth. But they just have to show you. But you have to be able to see it for yourself. It's always hidden in plain sight. And if you think that they don't exist, well, check out what your president, JFK, who was assassinated, had to say.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
In 2010, it was called Operation Lockstep. This was where the UN and big corporations, big leaders and owners of corporations, the ones that control the world, got together. And who was there? Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates' pops, the eugenicist who ran Planned Parenthood. Also, you know, that Chinese lady in the media, the one who's telling you that you have to get mandatory vaccinations or we won't be able to do things. She was also a former leader of the former president of Planned Parenthood. But anyway, let's go to Operation Lockstep. I found a video of a guy in Parliament, and I think this is Poland, okay, in Poland's Parliament, where he gets up there and he explains everything in the Operation Lockstep documents. Now, it's in a different language, so you have to read the captions.
In 2010 ontwikkelde de Rockefeller Foundation, een van de meest invloedrijke NGO's ter wereld, een aantal scenario's voor de toekomst van technologie en internationale ontwikkeling. Dit rapport. En in dit rapport beschrijft de Rockefeller Foundation het zogeheten scenario Lockstep. Over de komst van een wereldwijde pandemie en de nasleep ervan, in 2010 dus al. Volgens dit scenario, en ik heb het dus hier bij me, zouden de Chinezen als eerste gaan beginnen met verplichte quarantaine voor alle burgers, is een citaat, en onmiddellijke en bijna hermetische afsluiting van alle grenzen. Nationale leiders over de hele wereld zouden hun gezag verstevigen. Met wetten, regels en beperkingen van het verplicht dragen van mondkapjes tot lichaamstemperatuurcontroles. Bij ingangen van treinstations, vliegtuigen, gebouwen. Komt allemaal hierin voor. Maar daar houdt het niet eens mee op. Want volgens scenario Lockstep staat ons nog veel te wachten. Zelfs nadat de pandemie voorbij was, zo schrijven de onderzoekers, bleef de autoritaire controle en het toezicht op burgers en hun activiteiten en werd het zelfs nog geïntensiveerd. In dit rapport uit 2010 wordt zelfs al gezinspeeld op klimaatlockdowns. Precies waar ze nu ook al over beginnen in onze tijd. Ik citeer. Om zichzelf te beschermen tegen steeds mondialer wordende problemen, van pandemieën en transnationaal terrorisme tot milieucrisis en toenemende armoede, namen leiders over de hele wereld de macht steviger in handen. Het rapport voorzag ook goed hoe burgers op alle maatregelen zouden reageren. Helaas, zeg ik daarbij. Net als nu staan mensen te juichen als ze gevaccineerd zijn. Foto's van hun geprikte arm op sociale media. Het staat allemaal in dit rapport. En smeken ze om een coronapaspoort. Voorzagen de schrijvers van het scenario Lockstep, zoals ik zei. De meer gecontroleerde wereld vindt dus, zo voorspellen zij al in 2010, veel acceptatie onder de bevolking. Burgers gaven vrijwillig een deel van hun soevereiniteit op en hun privacy in ruil voor meer veiligheid en stabiliteit. Burgers waren toleranter en zelfs gretig om meer top-down aansturing en toezicht te krijgen. Nationale leiders hadden meer vrijheid om orde op te leggen op manieren die zij zelf geschikt achten. Dat dit zou leiden tot een digitaal paspoort hadden de auteurs van het Rockefeller Foundation rapport ook al voorzien. In 2010 kon de Rockefeller Foundation de huidige technologische stand van zaken natuurlijk nog niet helemaal letterlijk voorspellen. Maar toen dachten zij al wel dat het verscherpte toezicht zou leiden tot een biometrisch ID voor alle burgers. En dit zit inmiddels in onze papieren paspoorten. Het digitaal vaccinatiepaspoort is daar alleen maar een aanvulling.
Now, let's get into the whole cancel culture. Suppression of information. And I think most people think about, man, the first one to get canceled was Trump. When he wasn't. And one thing that I could tell you that Trump got right the whole time was he was elected is when he was turning over the hands to the Biden administration. He said, they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. This is if we had a Mount Rushmore of cancel culture, yeah, Trump would be up there. But the George Washington of cancel culture, of who got canceled, would be Alex Jones.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Yeah, him. And he goes on some crazy rants. But the dude is probably right. I'm going to check out. I want you to watch these predictions of his that started in 1998.
Biological and chemical attacks are imminent. They are preparing us. They are going to create a crisis because they know that they can't deal with a real political backlash and the restructuring and the reforming and getting back to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Biological attack is imminent. Imminent. It's going to happen. It's not a question of if, but when there's going to be a chemical or biological attack on the American people. And what is their solution? They say, give up our rights, submit to Big Brother. The same thing Hitler did in 1933 when he said, the Jews, the blah, blah, blahs, they're going to blow something up if I don't take full command and round people up and suspend and set up checkpoints and issue license and papers.
That during the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act, remember 2002, they wanted to have forced inoculation nationwide for smallpox, and it came out in news articles that, oh yeah, the feds are going to use sports stadiums and postal offices as the centers where if you refuse to be inoculated, you'll be taken and be held, but will also forcibly inoculate if we're given the orders at these injection facilities.
He said that in 1998. Well, as of recently, the dude just come out and said, and he's been saying on his show, ever since this pandemic started, he's been calling it. And he said that in his documentary, Endgame, he basically describes, in conclusion, what the end game is. Okay? Now, you can't find it online anymore. It's gotten deleted every time they put it up. It was even on Amazon. It was all the streaming sites. They took it all down. But you can get it off his website, so I went and purchased it.
Eugenics dominated the 20th century. Its ruthless spirit has now metastasized into the fields of genetics, nanotech, and robotics. But that's not surprising. From their inception, all three disciplines have been dominated by eugenicists. The billionaire founder of Sun Microsystems, Bill Joy, courageously went public in 2000 to warn of a cancerous consensus among the technocratic elite that at best humanity would be completely enslaved by the year 2030, and at worst, mass extermination of everyone but the elite would take place. A who's who of the techno-elite are members of what is known as the transhumanist or post-humanist movement. Many of its adherents see only the beneficial aspects of technology's exponential rise, like bringing sight to the blind, sound to the deaf, and longer life for all. But what many of them don't know is that master eugenicist Julian Huxley founded transhumanism, and that society's controllers openly admit that the new system is designed to progress into absolute tyranny. Leading transhumanist Ray Kurzweil boasts that technological advancements will allow those that can afford it to live forever, but admits that most won't be able to keep up with the new master race. The drive for world government is now all about who will control and have access to radical life extension systems.
Biological evolution is too slow for the human species. Over the next few decades, it's going to be left in the dust.
Transhumanists believe that they will attain the fountain of youth by merging with technology. Now, it may be within their reach. Decades ago, transhumanists said that if you did not accept augmentation or enhancements, you would no longer be able to get jobs. And now it's happening today.
The elite who occupy the commanding heights of digital reality are suicidal nihilists. Suicidal nihilists know that there is no longer any substantive purpose to their willing, but they would always prefer to go on willing than not to act at all. They can very happily ally themselves with the notion of nuclear holocaust or perfect exterminism.
Technology has become so powerful in its capacity for destruction that free humanity cannot afford to let psychopathic technocrats with delusions of grandeur repeat the mistakes of their forebears, because it is highly probable that this time they may destroy everything, including themselves, in their mad rush for godhood. In this film, we have chronicled the Overlord's bloody orgy of experimentation, which already claimed the lives of more than 150 million people in the 20th century. And now, they are promising to deliver an invincible tyranny that will dwarf their past exploits. In the days of World War II, there were sovereign nations and armies to stand against Hitler's final solution. Once world government is in place, no one will be able to stop the New World Order's plans for global population reduction. For those immune to psychological programming, hundreds of FEMA camps have already been built throughout the United States. In their quest for population reduction, no method is off the table. These dark builders intend to release a string of man-made bioweapons plagues, each one worse than the last, while at the same time expanding the police state to enforce an orderly extermination of the population, all in the name of fighting invisible terrorists. And the Georgia Guidestones stand today as a cold testament to the elite's sacred mission. To have a two-class system where the underclass are forced to live as slaves in tiny enclosed cities, while the elite enjoy the land of the earth, evolve into superhumans with the aid of advanced implantable technologies, live eternal lives, and travel throughout the cosmos. This is the promise given to the inner members of the New World Order and the agenda of the Bilderberg Group.
All right. Now, we'll go back to the 666 thing. It doesn't end with the HR 666. Bill Gates owns a patent with WO 2020060606. Inside that patent is a cryptocurrency that goes inside the human body that you use to make all purchases. Debit card in the arm. Basically that RFID chip. Check it out.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
And I'll just briefly mention that Bill Gates currently owns more farmland than anyone in America right now. And he just recently bought all of this up. Okay, 100,000 acres in California, Illinois, Iowa, Louisiana, and other states, an area that is 7 times larger than Manhattan. Why would he do that? To control the food supply? Maybe. Also, the CDC has just recently bought up a bunch of green zones that they're going to use as quarantine camps for asymptomatic people. Now, do you understand the diversion tactics, the lies, the confusion, the loss of logic like this?
Right now, at this moment, there is no need to change anything that you're doing on a day-by-day basis. But as soon as it became clear that there was community spread, then it became clear that we were in real trouble.
When was that? Around when was that?
Well, that was probably towards the middle to end of January. Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks. Putting a mask on yourself is more to prevent you from infecting someone else. And if everybody does that, we're each protecting each other. If one mask is good, 2 masks are better. The CDC is saying that at minimum, wear a mask, okay? This is what they're saying. Make sure you wear a mask. So you wear a mask. Then you want it to fit better. So one of the ways you could do it, if you would like to, is put a cloth mask over, which actually here and here and here, where you could get leakage in, is much better contained.
Our cameras are off. Let's just watch this for a second.
You think this. An open mind is the clear thing we need to do.
If you ever did any research on Satan, it's just like secret societies. That's their tactics. As above, so below. Inversions, confusion, distortion, similar to the way communists work. So I don't know if you want to call this Satanism, if you want to call this communism, you can call it whatever you want. But just to let you know, you are under attack. That's why they calling out white supremacists. It's not because they're looking for KKK members. They're not worried about that. They're gonna call you that. You're just a human being who doesn't want to lose your freedom. They're going after Christians because they know that once we find all of this information out, that's going to be the first ones to come after them. Now, we have to be smart about this. You really have to be smart about this because they got all of this lined up to lock your ass up if you disobey. So it's up here. We got to figure it out up here. But the only way to figure it out up here is to spread the message. Now, I want to show you something. I'm not done with 666. Corona. Check this out. If you add up all the letters in Corona, there's 6 letters. Now, remember what we did with 19? So the 3rd letter in the alphabet is C. The 15th letter is O. The 18th letter is R. 15th letter O. 14th letter N. 1 is the first letter. If you add all those letters up where they sit in the alphabet, that equals 66. You're dealing with globalists, Satanists, communists, whatever you want to call them. Whether you believe in God or not. I'm not here to preach religion. I'm not here to tell you that this is facts. But you can't make this stuff up. And how many coincidences do you need before you realize something ain't right here? Now, before I stop this video, I want you to listen to a speech or whatever, a bite, a clip from 1965 from a man named Paul Harvey. And he describes, if he was the devil, what would he do and how would he do it? Check it out.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
In conclusion to all of this, there's going to be a great reset. The great reset is happening. It's here, bro. It's here. The question is, who's going to hit the reset button? Us or them? Peace.
Bioweapon psi operation on our brains, being twisted by a sickness, playing sick and twisted games. Creation of a virus, born in lies to pump inside us. Can't turn my back today, no way tomorrow ain't a promise.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.